My little recorder pales in comparison to his setup.
This is both visual and oral?
Yeah, they're doing the video for the PWC, for their historic records.
Okay.
Alright. And 1, 2, check 1, 2, 3. Say if you 1, 2, 3.
1, 2, 3. 4, 5, 6. 10, 11.
Perfect. Apologize, we got into this room a little bit later than preferred, so. A little bit on time. Ready when you are.
We're ready. Jackie, thank you for doing this, I guess for the PWC and the FAA. And to get started, how did you get interested in aviation?
It started when I was a senior in high school and I was helping out in the library. I lived in a very tiny town in Arizona, copper mining basically, called Superior, Arizona. And some military recruiters came through and left some brochures, which I was supposed to put away in the right place. And on one of the brochures was a Navy wave, as they were called then, holding a microphone, the old-fashioned kind, which looks like it. You know, it sits down and you can send it down, stands up. You don't, nothing but the ears.
Mm-hmm.
And a plane was flying by, and she's got this microphone. And I said, "What is that?" And so I went home for lunch, as we did in those days, and my mom and dad were at lunch, and I said, "I'm going to join the Navy." My dad said, "Over my dead body." And my mother said, "I think that would be great." So that began an effort at 18. I was still 17. You had to be 18 to go in the Navy.
Mm-hmm.
And so I graduated from high school May 28th.
What year, may I ask you?
Yes, 1958.
Okay.
And in June of 1958, I was 18. In July of 1958, I signed up and joined the Navy. I had to take a Greyhound bus from my little town to LA, where there was a Navy recruiter, and go through, there was a physical, there was a written, and, you know, hold up your hand and swear to protect the country you love. And so I went through that, which put me in the Navy in July of 1958. Then I was asked to be responsible for 12 of the women that were going back in this recruiting effort. The reason I put this together is because this Navy prep, and the time I was in the Navy, sent me on to my FAA time. So they got us to Los Angeles International. I don't remember the kind of plane I should, but it was a propeller plane.
Oh my.
I think a DC-7. And we flew from LA to probably Reagan National. And I was carrying orders for 12 women,
My.
which it was scary to me to think that, you know, something went wrong. I mean, I'd been in the Navy like 2 days maybe.
It's a lot of responsibility.
So from there, we went into Washington, D.C., because we had to go to the train station. From there, on the train station, we went to Perryville, Maryland. And from there, a bus came and put us on a bus and took us to Bainbridge, Maryland, where they had boot camp training for women.
I had no idea.
But that, again, was 1958.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure you're younger. But it was exciting, and I was all ears and eyes and a little frightened. No, very frightened, you know, so far from home. And so I began to mix with these women. There were 90 women, 89 or 90 women in our company. There was another sister company, and
Were your trainers female or male, or mixed?
female.
Okay.
And the chief of our company, I think her name was Chief Story, I'm trying to remember. Anyway, there was a effort to get us lined up and to learn how to march and march together, and some of them couldn't or wouldn't or whatever, and they put this gal in charge of us, and obviously she had not been in any kind of activity that showed her how to march and lead and take these 90-some women down the road to class, swimming, the chow hall.
Mhm.
So I was asked if I would do it, and I said, I'm really short. This other guy was like 5'10". She said, oh, it'll be okay, it'll be okay. And you march in front. Here's the company. It's a line of women lined up.
Mhm.
And then the leader marches slightly to the right.
Okay.
So I became what is called the RCPO, Recruit Chief Petty Officer.
Wow.
No more money.
Oh, that was going to be my next question. Pay raise?
No. But I had been in high school band, and I played the drums, and I knew how to march. I knew where my left foot was. So left, your left foot. And I just said to this woman, I said, we can't be late every morning, straggling, getting up at like 6.
Mhm.
They all had different get-up requirements, duties, toiletries, bathing, whatever. I said, it's not important. You gotta be outside. We have to be lined up at such a time,
Mhm.
because you got in line at the chow hall, and if you were late, you had to turn around and face backwards, like shaming.
Mhm.
I said, I don't want to be turned around anymore. We're going to be in time. We're going to be ahead. 5-10 minutes, I don't care. And so I got through boot camp leading these gals. It was great. It was informative. It tested my leadership
Mhm.
and my ability to get up and get myself ready. Make my bed, not the quarter thing, but make your bed and get going. And like I said, there was about 90 of us, and there were other companies, so it was the prod of where I would go in my career.
Mhm.
I
How long was boot camp?
9 weeks.
9 weeks, okay.
So I started in July, I got out in, I think, October. And bless my mother, she drove from Superior, Arizona to Bainbridge, Maryland
Wow.
to see me graduate.
Oh. Not your dad, just mom?
Just mom. And then we drove back home, and I had like a couple of weeks leave, and then I went to Jacksonville, Florida, because I said I want to be an air controlman.
Mhm.
So to be an air controlman, you have to go to basic aviation training, which is at Jacksonville, Florida, and they had us do things like start an airplane, do the fire watch, carrying the CO2 bottle out, dragging it across the tarmac. And so when we got there, it was, I think there were 4 or 6 women in this company behind 92 Marines,
Oh my.
all male. So we had to march at the rear of them, and they took a 32-inch stride, which is not what my legs do.
Mm-hmm.
So that was very interesting, and went through soldering, AC/DC electricity, all that.
Goodness.
It was a very rounded aviation with just a little bit, smattering of air traffic control. But for all the aviation ratings, they did this prep school.
Wow. Interesting.
So after getting through that, then I was able to be approved for air traffic school, which then required a train ride to Olathe, Kansas in December. And that's where I started my air traffic school.
Mhm.
And once I started, and once I got through, and once I got an assignment to Naval Air Station Alameda, which is across the bay from San Francisco, then I was on my way. 3 years I spent in the Navy, married toward the end of my 3 years. My husband was in the Navy, and he was assigned to Hawaii, Barbers Point. So our decision was I would go home to my mom and dad, and he would get out later that year, at the end of, I think, 10 years. Is much older. And so the time went by, and I was pregnant with our first child, and he called me and said, I'm not going to get out, I'm going to stay in. I have a chance to go to plane captain school. And so he said, I'll come get you. So he came and got me, and we lived in Navy housing near Barbers Point. And my first son was born in a sugar cane plantation hospital.
Oh my,
And I was the only white woman there.
wow.
But it was, you know, it was all good. It was all good.
Mm-hmm.
And we stayed there, and later he was transferred to Point Mugu, which is just south of Santa Barbara, and he was part of the Naval Test Missile Group, and he would fly from there to out of Point Mugu on an aircraft that was called a Willie Victor. It was a form of an EC-121. It's got the big radar dome underneath and one on top. It was called it was ugly. Anyway, he flew that, and as we went down the road, I had had another child in Hawaii, and then I had one born in Oxnard, California, so I had 3 boys.
Wow.
And then 2 children by his first marriage came to live with us, so there were 5.
Wow. Big family.
4 boys and a girl. And that's about the time that things went crossways with us. So, it's an interview, don't need to go there. I moved out of Navy housing with the 5 and
With the 5.
went down to San Diego area and found a rental, and that's where the mother of the 2 lived, but she didn't want to keep them. She said, you're good with kids, Jackie, you keep them. So here I am with 5 kids, and then I have to look for a job, and I don't have any money. So my parents, God bless them forever, helped me. And a friend at Naval Air Station North Island said, you should go to work for the FAA. And I said, it's been 7 years, how can I do that? He said, what else are you going to do? I don't know, bartender? So he helped me with the 171 form, which I found very challenging.
And who is this who was helping you? I'm sorry.
His name was Jim Burkeen. He was the chief at North Island,
Okay.
Navy chief.
Did you know
friend.
him?
We worked in the Navy together up at Alameda.
Okay.
And so I got the form in, then I was called and scheduled for a physical and an interview at I think San Diego Airport, and went through all the hoops, and then I was called and said, you've been selected for radar control at Los Angeles Air Traffic Control Center.
Wow. You didn't have to go to Oak City?
Yes,
Oh, okay.
which is in Palmdale. So where is that? It was Palmdale. Then so they had us come up to Palmdale for, which I will call orientation for a day or 2, and what insurance plan do you want, what this is all very new to me, and went through that, took me through the control room. I was a what we call a tower flower in the Navy. I worked the tower. You look at airplanes. But at the center, you look at a scope.
Mhm.
So that was all new to me. And I had an interesting time there, and I was pleased what the future looked like.
How many
Wait.
women were in,
2
really?
in LA Center,
Mm-hmm.
2 women that were journeymen, and I met them. They seemed nice. There was a couple, there was no other women in training at that time.
Wow.
There were guys, and then they decided that I would go to Oklahoma City, and I started Oklahoma City, I believe, on November 3rd, 1968,
Okay.
and went on, and I had the 5 kids at home. So I found a keeper, a caregiver for the kids
Wow.
for $50 a week.
Oh my goodness.
Couldn't do that today. For
Mm-mm.
5 kids, come and live there, get them up, off to school, wherever they were going. They were all in school, except Billy. He wasn't in school. Flew to Oklahoma City, and the FAA paid for your room and board,
Mhm.
which to me was a lot of money, and I didn't have much, but got started in the class. There were 3 women in the first, well, it was the second class after the academy reopened,
Mhm.
and it was myself, Sue Mostert, now Townsend, and another gal. We talked, and I said, I can't remember. I think her first name was Jane, but she was a pilot, and Sue had been in the Army and had done some link training, and I was air traffic,
Right.
air controlman. So I went through it was a 6-week course, that was it. And then you went back and trained at your facility
Mhm.
on headsets, radar, phraseology, all of that. So,
So what'd you do at the academy? Just sort of the basic.
yes, studying
Mhm.
tests, weather, phraseology, aircraft identification, and which I call a real basic course.
Mhm.
So when we left there to go back to our home facility, I flew back to San Diego, and the next day loaded my old Chevy station wagon with 5 kids and pots and pans and everything you needed. Moved it up to Palmdale, Lancaster area, and got a rental and started work right away.
Did you face any hazing, by the men when you?
There was, it was subtle,
Okay. Mhm.
and when they marched us around, it was like I felt it was like a pageant, I was 28,
Mhm.
and today I will be 78 in June, next month or 2,
Mhm.
so a lot of time, and I was single, and as I got more involved where you sat next to people to work and learn and train, the little subtleness of sort of trying to unnerve you.
Mhm.
I can remember being told, why don't you get back in the kitchen? I said, I spend a lot of time in the kitchen. I've got 5 kids, and they like to eat many times a day. So you had to not let it get you down. If it did, and I saw it happen to others,
Mhm.
where they just kind of fell apart.
Wow.
And the guys could be quite direct and painful.
Mhm.
But I had had that time in the Navy,
I was going to say your Navy time toughened you
and-
up.
put up with some really dramatic situations with men. John, sorry, but men who just needed a kick.
Mhm.
So I did pretty well at LA Center. If it's improper for my knee to be crossed,
No, it's okay.
okay. So I went on with the training at LA Center, and about 2 years later, or at least a year or more, I decided I needed to adopt these 2 children that weren't mine. And I saw a lawyer, and it was going to be, I think, $280 or something, 1969, 70,
Mhm.
which I had to save for. But I did, I adopted them as my own, because both parents didn't care
Wow.
at the time, which is
Bless your
amazing.
heart.
Yeah, but it helped get them on my government health
Ah.
program, because before that, they
I
weren't
hadn't thought
mine.
about that, right.
They weren't legally mine. So, I had met a fella, nice fella, we were dating, and he didn't mind the kids. He was a widower with 2 children.
Mhm.
His wife had been killed in a car
Oh
accident,
my.
so we came together, and in 1970 we married with 7 children.
Oh my. His children were still young and at home?
Yes.
Oh.
And he didn't have a wife, so I became the wife of
That's
those
right.
2.
And was this an FAA marriage? Was he also an FAA?
Yes, he's controller, senior controller. And within a year, they encouraged me to move out of LA Center because of nepotism,
Right.
which was interesting because at Oakland Center, which is another California radar control center, there was a husband and wife working side by side.
Hmm.
But they said I had to go, and I was not FPL, full performance level, and he was, so I should go to Edwards.
Oh, wow.
You talk about people not wanting you there, that was Edwards. They were
Really?
terrible. There was a wife that said that if she's going to work there, then my husband has to quit.
My goodness.
Like I'm a threat.
Right.
And when I went out there, there was no bathroom for women in the facility.
Oh my.
So I had to leave the facility and walk to another building through a lobby and find a bathroom for
Oh my
women.
goodness.
And
And that had to be a long commute.
it was 30 miles,
Okay.
not too bad.
Okay.
The Antelope Valley, where LA Center was,
Right.
Palmdale, Lancaster, is out in the middle of the high desert in California.
Okay.
And that's where Edwards Air Force
Mhm.
Base is. So I went out there and I was studying, and there was one